welcome once again to another episode of the Going Over podcast. Please hit that like button. Push that little subscribe number right there and do us a favor as we're moving up the ladder. I am your neighborhood friendly trainer, coach, promoter, and 43-year-old professional wrestler, Zack Primetime Reeb, and I am joined alongside my podcast partner, the 7-foot wrecking ball, Paul Isadora. Paul, welcome to the podcast program.
What's up, man? Just got done with training, bud. That's why I'm rocking the. We call it an A shirt. The package calls it an A shirt. I'm wearing an A shirt.
Not where I come from, baby.
Some people might have a different name for them. And we could form a tag team right now. The wife beaters right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Reno, Nevada, and Philadelphia, by way of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the wife beaters with a Z. Make it right.
There you go, man. I'm looking at all the different episodes that we've done now that we've eclipsed the 50, the half a year mark. You know, when we're creeping over, man, trying to get to that 100 in that first year with just grinding them out, man, just trying to stay consistent and getting it done. And I'm surprised out of 51 episodes, I think only maybe 12 or 13 don't have 100 views yet. So, a couple stinkers. I don't know, man. The ones that are a little short on views, I think are some of the ones that have that should be very that are very educational. The one with the Ballard brothers, I think, was one of the ones that wasn't over 100 yet. Just, I don't know, some of the ones that are really surprising to me, but overall, most of them were over 100, man. So, and they're getting there quicker and quicker. So,
well, we're gonna run it. It's gonna run back. We're gonna talk about all this stuff. It's been a process of non-perfection. You know, you can't get to perfect if you don't show up. If you don't have consistency, man, there is grit to our grind, baby. And speaking of something we always touch upon, this last weekend in Winnemucca, I spoke with Sparky Ballard today on the phone. And one thing that I wanted to talk about, and we talk about this so often, we talk about how important the position of a referee is. We don't see many managers and valets anymore, so that's something that we need to see more of. We're going to need to see more of that, and good managers, good valets. Back in the day, that's few and far between, but it's very memorable stuff. But the referee position, man, so vital, so important. As a referee, for me being in the ring, I had a chance to call a lot of stuff to guys in the ring this past weekend, and once again it felt as if Zack Reeb was speaking a foreign fucking language at times. And like I said before, we deal with a lot of young talent, and that's probably something new to a lot of people in the wrestling industry, is having somebody in there with the qualifications to be able to tell you to rise up, make some noise. Oh, here's a little spot for you. Maybe you should listen to me on this little spot that I'm calling for you. But one thing I wanted to say before I let you get going on this past weekend real quick is, you know, when I was feeling out the card early on, if you're an inexperienced referee, you should definitely be in the ring with an experienced worker who can help you out and can help the other inexperienced worker they're helping out. And if you're an experienced referee, you should be in the ring with somebody some talent that is less experienced in the ring too. So moving the referees around. If you got an experienced ref or you got a couple experienced refs and a couple inexperienced refs, move them around. Put the inexperienced refs with the more experienced guys so they can learn. And if you have more experienced referees, put them with the least inexperienced or less inexperienced guys so he can really help them out. And that's how I feel when we're putting that card together. That's how everybody from all workers are going to grow and benefit from that situation.
Absolutely. So, I was trying to get some feedback from the guys that were at training that today that were also at the show this weekend, and um, one of the comments was, "Oh, they probably couldn't hear Zack giving them the spots because there was over 3,000 people watching the show." Which I was like, that could be a thing, but I feel like so many times when you're in the ring, I don't know, man. I don't know about you, but a lot of times you're locked in on what the other guy is saying, and so you can generally hear spots regardless of how loud the crowd is because you have like this selective hearing. So I said, yeah, that could be, but I thought it also happened on the second day that was less crowded. So I was like, I don't know if I believe they couldn't hear what he was saying because I feel like I heard the guys going, I heard you talking, but I thought you were speaking Japanese. So, but yeah, so I thought that was funny just to hear that. And I don't know if it's an excuse or what it is, but it's someone's perspective, right? And you think about how somebody's perception is reality, right? So whatever they perceive as happening, that's the reality to them. So and I don't know if that was what was going on or what if that was it or what, but I know working in front of a big crowd is always I don't know if it gets people nervous. I always think about like people are like, oh, you wrestle in front of all these people. It's like, well, I play basketball in front of thousands of people every night. So to me, it's like it's not really that big of a deal. And it sounds like I'm just like, ah, for me, I'm a, uh, I don't know, like I'm a seasoned guy, so I've been in front of thousands of people, but I feel like that's how it is. Like you're playing basketball, you don't hear the crowd, man. You hear your coach, you hear your teammates, you block everything else out, and you're focused on what you should be doing. And I've heard so many times about being in the zone, and people are like, it's a real thing, You're in the zone because you're so focused on what you're supposed to be doing, and I think that. Equates to wrestling as well. You get in the zone and you're hearing what you need to hear. You hear Austin talk about so much like I can't hear for shit, but I can hear if one person at the top of the venue says that sucks or isn't into the match. I can hear that. So it's that selective hearing. So we were talking about the Oregon Pro Wrestling School, where some of these guys that came and worked this Winnemucca show have been in and out of, and how impressed I was with, as as new to the business as a couple of these guys were, how impressed we were with their character and just the way that they were as people, and you know I heard the comment today like that show was surrounded by a lot of really quality guys, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, what was your take on that? I mean, you spent the entire weekend with this crew of guys, and I don't want to say hand selected, but these were guys that that reached out and were, hey, I'm excited about that, and it's always a great situation where you can come somewhere and you can work 2 straight days, or you can set up back-to-back shows or something along those lines. So, what's your feel about these guys that we had on the card this last weekend?
Well, it was great guys, man. And for a lot of guys, that was the first. First time they've worked back-to-back events like that. And going out, the night we got there, and then going out the first night of the show, we came to a different time, man, where you went out on and had a wild night, and then you had to recover that next day and come back and do it again, whether it was the same town or whatever town you were in. To touch on all this too real quick, so I can just throw it back and then answer that question. First off, it's a learning process. And it seems like sometimes we're so hard on people, but we're not being hard on them. It's just hearing somebody in the referee, hearing me call spots for you, hearing Sparky Ballard call spots for you and stuff like that. We always say the hardest thing to do is have that ear for the audience, right? So now you're trying to figure, because we fucked up too at the amount of time these guys have been working, but you're trying to have that ear for the audience. You're trying to put your match together the best you can. And then you have somebody in the ring telling you, no, do this. And that's difficult. I get it. I get it's difficult because you probably had something you were planning on doing. Well, the thing about this is like I said, it's a learning process. Plans change, bro. You always say it. Card subject to change. Spot, not high spots. Spot, subject to be called on the fly when you hear the audience start to come up and come down. And I'm just going to hammer that. I love reffing, by the way, but I'm just going to continue to hammer that in all the way. Malcolm Flex, Rocket, and Hoochie Daddy, baby. Great guys, man. They were there to help set up. They were there to break down. Very, very helpful. Malcolm Flex is a very smart. They were all smart, but the other two were very young to the business and very smart, by the way. And I left a lot of stuff to these guys to call and to tell me what was going on. But when you can get new guys that can come down and just fit right in the crew, man, whether we're at the concert, whether we're at the bar, whether we're setting up the ring, breaking it down, just a great crew of guys. And I've kept in touch with all of them in the last couple days as well. But you meet new people, and for us, Washington, Oregon, now we talk about maybe our guys can get going that way because their guys are coming down this way. And you talk about Washington, you talk about Oregon, you talk about Nevada, you talk about California, the possibility of working 4 possible states in this one territory is what it becomes in the Northwest, man. So yeah, really, really good job on your behalf because you're different than I am when it comes to the booking, man. I'm really like solid on these guys. We need you to stick around for the production and the story, and I'm not just looking for guys for a booking. And you have a different outlook on seeing a lot of different talent and bringing a lot of different guys in and trying guys out and mixing the card up. And it's different than what I do, but I also like it because it helps me as a talent scout, almost as a promoter, see talent that I would not have seen if you wouldn't have brought him in. So very, very grateful for that. Very grateful for the weekend. And it was very nice to get to see you after I took a stone cold stunner from a middle-aged musician. And boy, he wanted me to hit him in the back with the chair. Everyone was like, "You're going to hit him in the back with a chair." And I'm like, dude, I even told him, I said, if I hit you with that chair, you've never been in a ring. You know nothing about pro wrestling. I said, I'm going to fucking smoke you. And he kind of laughed. And I said, no, I'm being serious, man. I'm going to show you that pro wrestling isn't fake when I hit you with this chair. So how about we try to get you over? How about you go over on me, and I will take something simple instead of me crushing you with that chair. But good job. Love the Oregon guys, man. That CJ Dirt, man, I've seen him around the business for a while, but getting to hang out with him And the kid brought his mom too, man. Like that's just a good kid, man. CJ Dirt out there. Hey, after this weekend, love that kid.
Absolutely. So I think it's really cool. And I was telling our students today, they were like, "Oh, talking about some of those guys, right?" I was showing them the video from some of the stuff that they do at that Oregon Pro Wrestling School, and I was like, "Oh, they put all this stuff online just so you can take it." And I said, "Well, I've heard this 100 times. Like, yeah, you can put all the training shit online that you want, but executing that stuff and understanding why you would use it and where you would put it and stuff like that, that's a completely different story, right? You can watch all the whatever shoot stuff or they're showing you the ins and outs of the business. It's like they're going through drills, man. They're just doing drills, they're doing cardio stuff, they're whatever. It's like some of it might make sense in the match, but some of it is just to get you in ring shape, right? And then I started going about like I know these guys from when I was in Portland Wrestling Monthly at Portland Wrestling, on TV where we would go every month and we would tape four weeks of TV. These were kids that were, you know, just breaking into the business, and now they're one of them is the one of the trainers at this school, and he's like, oh shit, kind of like you're tracking down the lineage like you've done with Coastal Pro Wrestling and how the connection to Pro Championship Wrestling, where that kind of came together, and so there's a lot of connections in the wrestling business. So when I was telling them about those guys, that's kind of how it was. Like, hey, who do you guys have that we can bring in for this show? It's a 2-day show. Like, it's going to give you an opportunity to work with some guys maybe that you've never seen before. Maybe you won't see in the future. Who knows? And they said, hey, well, what about these 3 guys? So it's just one of those things. We talk about so much about networking, right? You go somewhere, you might not be wrestling, right? You go and you meet people. You talk to people and get their contact info. Stay in touch with them, because you just never know when something's going to happen. And you go, hey, what about these guys? We can bring these guys in from Oregon, Washington, people that I that have trained with people that I trust. That's why you ask me and I ask you, like, who can we have work on our shows? Who do you trust? I don't know how many times that's happened in the past, and I've told these guys, it's just one of those things. You show up at shows with the people that train you, and people see you. You're just a face that they constantly see, and then next thing you know, there's a cancellation or something, and the promoter goes, hey, who'd you bring with you? Or, hey, what about that guy? I've seen him, for the last year doing ring crew, doing whatever they need to be done. What do you think? That guy's one of the Reno guys, or hey, that's one of Zack's guys, or in this case, this is guys that come from Oregon Pro Wrestling School. Like, they're just trusted guys. You don't have to go, can this guy work? You just go, they were trained the right way. Of course they can work, So it's comforting having those type of scenarios. And, I know last year at this show, there were some guys that came from Utah. And that guy hit me up as well. And I was like, oh, dude, the card's already full. Otherwise, that'd be great. I'd love to have. That's it, man. So
there's a kid. I got pulled to the side, and a kid had a picture with Manny Lemons and was asking JP, saying, you got to bring Manny back, man. He was like, great. And I'm like,
right.
The kid like scrolled through his phone and showed him to me.
Well, and that's what you want, right? You want someone to come up to you and go, hey, where's this guy, right? I always say that about Jerry Gigolo, man. People are just constantly asking if he's going to be on the card. I say, well, fuck yeah, I'm going to have him on the card. If that's going to bring you to the show, bring you and bring a handful of your friends. Let's get a couple thousand people out there.
For sure. And there was a couple thousand people out there on that first night, which was great. A drill at the training, a drill is just a drill if you just have people doing the drill. But if you set up a drill and you have an experienced worker working with newer guys, it's no longer a drill. It's an opportunity to really start learning how to work and pace things out. Rick used to always tell me, hey, record your practice and send it to me at East Bay. And I would say, no, because what I'm doing, even though you're great and we're friends and we talk on the phone every day, you have no idea why I'm doing what I'm doing. You could see the whole thing I'm doing and you could replicate that, but you have no idea why I'm doing that. Why the detail, the explanation, the psychology, crowd psychology. There's wrestling psychology and crowd psychology of why I'm teaching this to the actual students. One thing that I'm really noticing, man, and it's not a knock on anybody, is good tag team wrestling. Good tag teams are just few and far between, and this goes across the board. WWE, I was watching, and it is getting very hard for me to watch Monday Night Raw. It's getting hard for me to watch WWE programming lately. I saw Becky Lynch in there with Lyra Valkyria doing like a promo back and forth. And it was almost like watching Zack Morris and Kelly Kapowski about to kiss on Saved by the Bell. I was like, and it's just one of those things, man, that I was looking at. It was a 3-way tag. And for 4 months now, I've been watching the Warriors or Raiders or whoever the fuck these guys are. The New Day, nobody gives a shit about them as bad guys. And the other American tag team guys that are with Gable, I guess. And I've been watching this shit show of tag teams with very quiet crowds that have been rehypnol. They've been drugged. I saw it today. They've been Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson have drugged Billy Jack Haynes, and he has woken up in a room with his wrestling boots on, naked, and his cowboy hat over his cock. And Billy Jack Haynes just came out today to let him know that they slipped a Mickey in my drink, by the way. That was the rib back in the day that we're hearing is coming out now, is that wrestlers used to drug your drinks, men and women alike. And I'm like, holy shit, we were ribbing people the wrong way in the locker room, I guess. But I'm watching these, and I finally had the opportunity. They put these guys in a fucking 3-way match, and I'm sitting here watching this going, I cannot believe this is on Netflix. I can't believe this is live on Netflix. I can't believe what I'm watching. And I want to just say this, and please respond. The second, during a tag match, before you get to the comeback and the finish, the second that 2 guys, not 4, 2 guys ignore the other 2 guys on the apron and choreograph high spots in the middle of a fucking tag match when you're supposed to cut the ring off and 2 guys put heat on 1 guy trying to make the tag. The second 2 guys start choreographing fucking high spots in the middle of a tag team match. Let me say this one more time out there for the young guys and for the people who've been around a long time. The second 2 individuals start choreographing fucking high spots in the middle of a tag team match is the second it is no longer a tag team match.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We talk about tag team wrestling, how unique it can be and how awesome it can be, but I think I always go back to, the goal is like, we're trying to keep this person in our corner so we can keep the advantage. And that's the whole story of it. Like, as funny as it sounds when you say a tag team match is a stipulation match. Like, it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be some sort of stipulation, right? We're doing I don't know, like you're doing some sort of match that's that's not a regular match. It's a tag team match. So because you're trying to create those advantages, you're trying to create those situations where the crowd is getting pissed off, right? You're keeping them in your corner. They want them to tag. You're taking shortcuts most likely to keep them in your corner, whatever it is. If you're knocking the guy's partner off the apron or running around and pulling his leg and getting ready to tag and you jerk him off the apron or whatever you're doing. There's just so many cool little things you can do with the tag match. But the bottom line is what we're trying to accomplish is keep them on our side of the ring so we can beat them up and we can keep the advantage, right? Let's build some sympathy.
And that scenario you just painted a couple run around and pull him off the apron before he makes the tag, which is very simple, but is so hard to do if you have no idea how to tag team. Tag team wrestling is the easiest thing of all time if you know how to do it. And if you're in there with the partner that can do it. Another question. I got a lot today, actually. I got a lot. Why is it that when people panic, whether they're blown up, whether they're just lost, whether they've botched, I botched the spot, darn it. How come every time, instead of grabbing a clinch or the old classic grab a wrestling hold and take them to the mat or just get this thing, let's take it down to the snapmare, headlock takeover, what the fuck ever. Let's just get the guy back to our corner. Something simple. Poke him in the fucking eyes. Who gives a shit? But how come every time things get a little hairy, as we'll call it, in the ring, why is it that somebody always just starts just smothering somebody with weak heat? They're like, oh shit, I'm lost. I notice it everywhere. It's like, dude, just fucking grab the hold. And it's part of the execution we talk about, because we always tell the guy, hey, what should you do if you get lost? And they're like, grab a hold. Yep. What do they never do? Grab a hold. You know what? Here's the funny thing. I was asking Sparky today. I said, what in God's name, what are these guys doing when they back them into the rope and they're lost? So they panic. So the first thing they do, they don't whip them to a corner to stick there and put up a boot. They don't bring them to the canvas or give them a big bump and cover them. They back them up to the rope, and a lot of times it's not even the correct rope because they're panicking. And I stand there as a ref watching, and they start calling a high spot. So they're talking to the guy. They put him in the rope, and they run into each other, and they're like, duck a clothesline, roll me up, body slam, float over. I'm going to – and I'm like, dude, do a sunset flip. Something, duck a clothesline, something. But they start calling these spots so fucking high, and then we expose the business. And I get that it's young, but it's like, dude, grab a hold, just take him back down and snapmare the baby face and grab him in a headlock, and he can counter you to a hammerlock. You know what I mean? Like if you want to get him back up or something. But we're losing the train of thought when it comes to this. So one more thing too is I was reffing the match, and it was a Pearl Harbor start. So from my recollection, if my memory serves me well, when the Japanese flew over to Hawaii to surprise the Americans, they did it without us knowing. So to me, a Pearl Harbor, we didn't see it coming, right? So if I am facing you, looking you dead in the eye, and you jumpstart the match, that's probably the stupidest thing you could ever do. When we say Pearl Harbor, jumpstart the match, we're saying when you turn around, when you give your back to us, that's when we're gonna do it. And I saw that happen, and like they literally told me, we're gonna wait till the guys turn around and throw a clothesline at him. And I was like, why? And I wanted to see how it went, right? Like I knew immediately when So the kid was telling me, which is one of my students. I knew when he was telling me, he's like, all right, coach, here's how it's going to go. And I'm thinking, wow, why? But then I just went with it. So I was like, let's see how this pans out, because I believe you got to learn from experience. But what when you think Pearl Harbor jumpstart a match, you think catching the guy off guard, right? Like not when if he's already turned around, you wouldn't want him to turn around to see you, right?
Right. I think about all the scenarios of that, like, the guy's getting checked by the ref and he turns his back so the ref can check the bottom of his boots. There's a great spot right there. Or you see so many times where you jump up on the second rope and you try to pop the crowd, and then I'll do it as the heel. Oh, and then you show me how it's done, and then I attack you from behind. Yeah, I think about all those different situations. Yeah, it's funny that
Handing off
you
your ring gear.
yeah, exactly. Reaching through the ropes, handing it to the person right there. But what I thought you were gonna say when you were saying when people get lost, I thought for sure you were gonna be like, when people get lost, why do they just go for a DDT? Because I've seen that hundreds of times. I'm lost. Take a DDT.
I,
Boom.
I did that
Right.
in my last match at Extreme Measures. It was all over the fucking place, and I fucking DDT'd him.
Right.
So I
So
get that. I do get that. I really do.
right.
I get the DDT. Like, as funny as it sounds, it's like that's my go-to. I'm like, oh, this thing's going to shit. Fuck you.
Right.
Hopefully, the guy sells that on his dome piece.
Exactly. But yeah, that's great, man. That's people are getting lost and they're trying to call a high spot instead of, I don't know, we talk about it all the time about grabbing a hold, or I like to talk to people about working a body part, finding, and I like to call it the anchor, right? I'm working whatever it is. I'm trying to get to a headlock, or I'm trying to work the arm, or I'm trying to work the leg. Like if I get lost, that's what I'm going back to. We talk about Dickey, right? That he kind of has that um, direct instruction that you're going to go for an ankle lock until the guy stops you from doing that, right? So that's the perfect example of the anchor hold, which just happens to be his finish. But it's like that's easy to remember. Is like, well, if I get lost, I'm going to try to take the guy down and I'm going to try to put an ankle lock on him, right? So there's no surprises happening there. Simplicity at its finest. So
Speaking of Dickie, man, I thought it was so funny. I hope he didn't get in trouble. I hope he's not in the doghouse at home. So he hasn't worked heel much, right? Funny story. And I got a couple other funny stories as well. But so Dickie's coming out the curtain as a heel, and his little daughter, this beautiful, cutest little thing in the world, she's got no idea that daddy's playing a bad guy, right? So Dickie's walking around, and the daughter runs up to the railing and like, Daddy, and Dickie's like, shut up, and walks by, and the baby's mom was like, oh, don't you ever do that to your daughter again, because she's used to daddy being the good guy, man. She's used to that. And bad news, Blakesley. One thing I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to talk about all the 8,000 people down there in little Winnemucca for Runnemucca. Everybody knows what Runnemucca is. I went to a meeting and I had bought my dad a Runnemucca shirt, and I bought me one too. Really cool shirts, by the way. And everybody knew what it was at the meeting, and they've been going since the 60s or whatever. And it was just one of those things. It was really cool to be down there. And bad news, Blakesley, the biggest bikers in the world that I've seen down there. There was a lot of huge guys. Everybody knew who Blakesley was the whole weekend after bad news after he wrestled. And he's the bearded lady, man. He is the circus act. He is the novelty guy, and people want to like him. It's the most unusual thing I've ever seen in a giant man. Because usually the giant man, you're like, oh, put the guy under a mask or book him as a monster. People love this guy, bro. He's the lovable guy with cookie crumbs all over his face, man. He's an attraction, a novelty act. Like they don't want to boo him. And he's so much more comfortable being a good guy than a bad guy. Can he be a bad guy? We've seen him do it, but he's just so much. The fans want to like. He's an attraction. He's different. We were in the bar. A guy who was almost the same height as him, but nowhere near the mass of him, comes walking up and looks at him, and I'm like, oh, I think this guy's gonna try to fight us. And he goes, "Hey, big man, pop my back for me." And Blake's just like, and cracks the guy's back. They love him. They love this guy, bro. He's a novelty act, man. He's an attraction. We don't have many of those in the independent wrestling scene. And I was blown away by this guy. I also saved him from a 500-pound drunk in public. That's a funny story. And then I also saw the 120-pound dorky white version of Mankind Mick Foley coming back off of being thrown off the top of the cell. This kid gets too drunk in the bar, collapses on me, reaches up to old Zack in recovery with his hand like, and then he ends up at the back of the bar. The cops come in, the paramedics come in, they bring in that striker stretcher, they throw him on it. He gets escorted with his little tummy hanging out. They put him in the ambulance, take him across to the parking lot. We go back about our business like, whoa, man, that's embarrassing. Everyone, I've never been carted out on a stretcher of a bar before. And you hear, I believe it was Arsonist go, he's coming back. This kid must have been hit with a fucking epinephrine pen, or they must have gave him an overload of vitamins, because he ripped off the straps in the stretcher, busted out of the ambulance door, and he's coming back with his arm. Foley is coming back to the Hell in the Cell, but Brandon was his name. 140-pound drunk as a skunk Brandon is heading back to Butch Cassidy's like he's gonna get more alcohol. Woo, daddy. Was it one hell of a weekend, Paul?
Oh man, it's great to hear that you put on a show that everybody enjoys so much, right? You try to kind of roll out the red carpet a little bit when it's a paid show where you're like, okay, well, this is you have this money, you don't have to worry about marketing the thing, you don't have to sell tickets to it, you don't have to go out and hang out posters or anything like that, right? They're counting on a certain amount of people wanting to see this, so they're investing in what we're doing. So, and then we try to, you've talked about before, we talked about this before, about how if you do a show like this and you're offering meals and hotels and stuff like that, you had mentioned, like, I don't think you should pay people, right? That's enough. Give them meals, give them hotels, because that stuff is expensive, right? You could say, hey, yeah, I'll pay you, but get your own hotel and get your own food. And you're going to come out way ahead if you're getting that stuff for free. So don't pay those guys. So, that's one of those things that you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Like, what's the value? Like you talk about, what's the value of a promo package, right? What's the value of you getting 8x10s and stock footage and getting your match edited with commentary and all that stuff? Like, there's a value to that. What is the value to going to a show where they're giving you food and lodging, And so, trying to take care of guys, where the experience itself is just like over the top, right? People, I heard from pretty much everybody just about how awesome the show was and how much they appreciated being there. And you go to a town like that, it's a small town, man. these people are going to come and watch the wrestling, and they're going to treat us like celebrities, right? And we've been there year after year, so we understand what it's going to be like. But it is such a cool thing to see the guys that have never been there before and how much they enjoy it. And you're talking about Bad News being, walking into a place and this lovable guy that everybody wants to see and talk to and pop their back, all this cool stuff that happens, right? And you talk to some of the other guys, and it's kind of the same type of thing. Like, I couldn't believe how many people were watching the wrestling, and the crowd was so loud, and all these different things. And it's an experience that doesn't happen everywhere. This is something that happens yearly for us at this one event. So it's cool that we got the opportunity to share it with you and your guys and some of these guys from the Pacific Northwest. Man, there's nothing that I like more than that. And it's for me, it's about the networking thing. You're getting to know some of these other people from other places, and you're sharing stories back and forth, and you're getting to know people, and I think it's a really cool thing where you get to start knowing some people and talk about talk about how smart some of these guys were. And they come from a different school, they come from somewhere completely different, but they're talking to you about things that make sense. And it's always cool to share those things, right? This is what works where I'm from, this is what works where I'm from, right? Let's match it together and let's see what we can do in this place that neither one of us is from.
Well, it's like I said, at the end of the day, right? When it was all said and done, we had wrestled, filled up with way too much food at this great steakhouse. Sean, thank you very much. I got to really know Sean this last weekend. Coolest kid. Uh, I enjoyed going over the card with him. I enjoyed really getting to know him, and thank you for hooking all that up in your hometown of Winnemucca. Big Sexy at the Butch Cassidy's bar. I mean, those guys were just great all weekend. And I told you at the end of the night, we were all standing there. It was almost 11 o'clock at night. We had just almost loaded everything up. And I said, look around. But, the dudes stayed till the bitter end, but they left. They were like the first to go because they drove all the way back to Red Bluff. But I was like, look around. I'm like, these are your guys, man. They were here all weekend doing whatever we ask. And it is, man. It was like when we first started coming down, when you guys were rebuilding, the attendance was down, just a lot of stuff. And people were like, hey, man, and I was like, there's a vision here. Paul's got a vision. It's rebuilding. We are starting this from scratch. It's going back to a name change. We're starting it from scratch. And it was just so cool to see these guys where it's like motel rooms for 3 nights, food vouchers. Oh, we're going to take you to a big steak dinner. Oh, we get to watch this really awesome concert. I got to see 12 Stones off my bucket list. I got a 6-minute video where he sat down right in front of me. And the coolest part was he was talking about months ago. He's sober, but he was working in a fry kitchen with a bunch of stoner kids. You know what I mean? And now he's back doing this. But they got paid. They got motel rooms. They got to wrestle 2 nights in a row. A big audience. Great weekend. Great bonding experience. You cannot beat these things. And I just look back at it, and what a cool little team you got going on there. And that was the one thing I told you, man. I was like, get the school going. Keep doing this, keep going at it, but you got to build this team around you. And I wanted to give a shout out actually to Richie, one of the students, Richie, because I think out of all the students that you got down there, I believe he was the only one that made it down to Winnemucca, and he was running sound, and he was setting up and breaking down and doing everything, and just a shout out to that's a good dude, man. And like we were talking a little bit at Butch Cassidy's, and it's nice to see the students get involved in the success of something too and see how everything runs down. And I think he drove his bike up there, but I just, when you don't see the students from the other places and then someone does show up like that, it sticks in our heads.
Absolutely. So yeah, so Richie brought his motorhome, and he said he spent little to no time in it, which I thought was hilarious. He's like, I got there. I think he said he got there at maybe, I don't know, maybe 7 a.m. or he got there early on Friday because he wanted to be there. Like, and the Oregon guys, they were there early Friday as well, asking if they could fly her, which I thought was just like, how fucking cool is that? Like, hey, I'm going to drive 8 hours. I'm going to get there the day before. And I'm seeing if I could help you promote this show. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. I feel like all the promoting is done. Like it's
it's a wrap.
Right. But hey, get with Sean. If there is anything else that we can do, Sean will let you know. So that was cool. And then yeah, I just talked to Richie today. It was like he said he got there early on Friday, and he's like, and I got home. What did he say? He got home at like 3-4 in the morning on Monday. Had to be to work at 6. Didn't get off till 7 that night. So he's like, basically, I got, I was in Winnemucca at 5 o'clock on Friday, and I didn't get home till 7 p.m. on Monday. I was like, oh shit. He's like, but of course he's like, what a fucking weekend though, man. That's what I'm talking about. This is he told me this is what I thought wrestling was gonna be. This is the part that I wanted to be a part of. And I was like,
I barely slept, Paul.
Right.
I barely slept. Because you know me. I'm either I can go to bed at 8, 9 o'clock, and I'm gonna wake up at 4:35 in the morning, or I can go to bed at 3 or after 3, like I did both nights, and I'm gonna wake up at 4:35 in the morning. And I don't drink. And I'm glad I didn't drink because I was running on no sleep. And I slept on the way home and a little bit. And we got back here at fucking a little after 4 in the morning. And I'm so tired. Bad News has my bag. And I get my stuff and I'm walking in and I feed my dogs and I go in there to charge, put my phone on the charger to crash out. And I go, oh shit, I left my phone in Bad News's car. So I wake my poor dad up and I'm like, hey, I need your phone. And I'm calling my phone and I'm adding Bad News to and he finally answers and comes back. And I didn't go to bed till like 5:30. And I didn't leave my house all Monday. Nothing. I didn't leave it. And I didn't shower until Tuesday at 10 a.m. So I was exhausted. And those weekend trips like that, like 2-3 day trips and sometimes week trips, that's what they do to you, man. Your sleep gets thrown off because you're just out there, the camaraderie, the networking, meeting new people, and it was a great weekend, man. But I just want to get back to something here, and we just flew through this episode, by the way.
Right, no shit.
Just flew through it. Moments and memories. So I mean, that's like, I guess that's the thing. But I just remember, I remember seeing a moment there too during one of the matches where I'm watching and I go, okay, this guy has a better physique than this guy. This guy's a better athlete than this guy, but this guy is a worker. And I remember thinking, I was very impressed by the guy. I was like, oh man, this guy can go, right? And I remember the other guy talking in the ring to him while he was just starting to put together a beautiful little masterpiece. And I just remember thinking in my head, like, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, shut up and listen to this guy. And it was just one of those things to me where, he's like, lighten up. And then I came into ref and I was like, lighten up. And it's that respect you have for certain people. I mean, me and this guy, Malcolm Flex, me and him had like this 2-hour conversation, man, where we're looking each other deep in the eyes at where the bar meets at the corner. And I'm just lost in this conversation with this guy because you're not just talking to somebody who's nodding their head at you. You're talking to a fellow wrestler who is speaking your language. And you guys are talking and you're explaining stuff, and he would talk and I'd look at him like, oh yeah, I got you. And then I would talk and he'd be like, mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I really love about this business. And we get to these points, and I was referring to the refereeing thing. And shout out to Sparky Ballard always, man. A big shout out to one of our listeners, Devin Maisie Gildark, who was asking me, like, how's the attendance on that? And I told him what it was the first night, and he was like, whoa. I told him what the total of the whole thing was, and he's like, wow, in that little town. So I know he's listening. I just wanted to give him a shout out because he's been supporting the podcast. He's been supporting the show. Serena, I wanted to give Serena a shout out. She's always sharing our stuff and putting us over. Doc's always putting us over with the production and everything else, but it's just so vital. And we always talk about selling, offensively. We talk about heat. We talk about the comeback, the finish, all these amazing things we talked about, which I think you and I get smarter by doing this podcast ourselves, because we're also learning every day, and that's the beauty of this. But it's just so important. I just want to all you young guys out there, and I want to close this last 9 or so minutes out with this, but I'm not selling, sorry guys, not selling. Listening to the audience. It's just it's the most important thing, because you're going out there. And I had to tell so many people this weekend, like, stay down, let them come up. Let them come up. Because if you don't hear anything from that crowd, if you got a chin lock, what the fuck ever, if you're doing something and you don't hear nothing from the crowd, and you just decide you're going to go to that next spot, and it's okay to choreograph, and it's okay to come up with an elaborate spot. But if you just do the spot because it's that, like, oh, it's the next thing in my match, time to do it. It's okay to do that spot, and it's okay to can that shit out like that. But you have to wait for the audience before you do it. So it's not, go ahead and choreograph, go ahead and do all that. But there has to be a lull somewhere where you're working the crowd or doing something or anything. There has to be a wait period in between what you have choreographed next, or the fans don't give two shits what you do.
Right, exactly. It's so funny that we talk about this. I feel like we talk about this on every single podcast. There's something about selling or listening or something of the like, right? Let's wait till the fans start getting into it. Then we can kind of transition to whatever's we think is going to fit next, right? And it's great to come up with some things that are cool to watch and make the crowd go wow and things like that. But I think sometimes we lose focus on what we're trying to do, and that's get the crowd involved, like get them on an emotional roller coaster of good versus evil, right? I want this guy to win, and he's getting beat up right now, and so cheering for the guy that you want to win, right? And I talked about when we were coming into the show, this is the ultimate barometer of that. If you can work, right? You're going to a crowd that nobody knows who the hell you are. Can you come out of the curtain and can you get them to say, I like this guy or I don't like this guy in 30 or 45 seconds? Can you accomplish that? That's the first part of it. And can you accomplish that? And then when you're in there, can you start making them feel sympathy for a guy you're beating up, or sympathy for yourself if you're getting beat up? Can you do these things? We talk about, like, how do you know if a guy's a good worker, right? And you're talking about just listening to this guy, call some sort of spot, right? And you're going, well, that fucking makes sense. Whatever it is, the crowd's starting to come up, or when the crowd comes up, here's what we're going to do, right? This is how we're going to get them to react. Here's how we're going to get them emotionally involved. Let's see what we can accomplish here. So I think that those things are super important. Yeah, right.
He was just cool, calm, and collected. The way he was talking in the ring, like he was like, "Come on, man, you're messing my stuff up. Slow it down." You know, like just and I'm enjoying this. You know what I mean? But the one thing I do want to say, you know, I get the young talent. We're helping them out, but the confidence, the quiet confidence of all these guys when they get there and watching them start to figure it out, like the whole finish to the tag match that opened up on night 1 with the dudes and Hoochie Daddy and Rocket, and it became the main event of night 2, and it was for the tag belts both times. And it was like, you guys put this together and add this guy, this musician into it, add the second referee into it, and then you come up and let me know what I'm doing as the ref. And then they came up and they told me, and I responded with, hey, that, why would I do that? Why would I do that as the ref? Because they were like, we're gonna punch and we'll go back and forth, and then we'll trap you in the corner as we're punching back and forth. We'll just back into you in the corner. And I said, why the fuck would I still stand in the corner?
Right.
My job is to not be in the corner so that I can get you guys out of the corner. I'd look stupid doing that. And it was, ooh, there goes my headset. And that's just one of those things that we talk about when we're putting that together. God, there was something I really wanted to talk about. We were talking about feeding back into the corner. I was talking about the confidence of the young workers. Even when they came up to me to tell me stuff, even if I thought it was wrong or it might shit on it out there, it was like, these guys are starting to understand putting stuff together. They're starting to get that, like, how, okay. And they're going to fuck up because we don't even get it all the time. You know what I mean? Sometimes we fuck up, but it's been a really fun last year of professional wrestling since I've gotten my head back in a way I've never had before. But it's been a really fun year, man. I'm having a lot of fun right now. So if you guys are out there, look at these two old boys right here. We're having fun again. And that's the whole fucking purpose of this thing, right? Is to have a good time.
Right. I think we got into this because we love it, right? We loved watching it as a fan. We thought it would be fun to get into the business. And then you get to a certain point where you're just like, you hear people talk about they took that first bump, right? And a lot of times that first bump, and I just heard this from a wrestling school. They say, well, we don't like to do the first bump in the first, maybe first couple of weeks, because sometimes it chases people away but when you start teaching them other things, it makes them think like, oh, there's a bunch of other things that we can do. And then maybe that first bump doesn't scare them away. And maybe they stay around for a little bit longer. But
nope.
I don't know, man.
Make them bump. If they can't handle the bump, we don't have to teach them nothing else, and we can save our time. Oh, shit. Real quick. That was what I was going to. Oh, my God. That's what I was going to fucking tell you. Damn it. And I lost it again. I've been trying to think of this through the entire. Oh, so real quick, that I finally remembered it. I don't like to overload people immediately following their matches. It's one thing I'm learning as a coach. I'll give them a little bit if they ask me, or I'll say something really calm and quiet to them. But I'm learning that if you, like after the match, they're going to talk to fans, their families there. They got so much going on. The guy, they let them talk to the people that they work with. Us as coaches, if we go up and we overload them with shit, let it marinate. Let them go out to dinner. Let them take the drive home. Give them the next day. Let them rest up a little bit, and then give them a call, and then give them the real critique. And then when you see them at class, we're back in the lab, and let's go to work, man. Let's work in silence, and let's let these guys let these guys talk to each other a little bit. And I'm finding that's been a problem of mine is the match is over and the guys are talking to each other, and I'd run up and I'd be like, all right, guys, let me give you my feedback now. No, let them discuss what went wrong first, and then we can come in as a coach. I've been trying to say that for 10 minutes. Close us out, bro.
All right, 10 seconds left, man. So yeah, I think it's important, man, that we get that done. But for you, Zach Primetime Reeb, and me, Big Paul Isadora, we're going over.